close your eyes and imagine a picture of an entrepreneur. Now, my suggestion is the kind of thing that's flashed up is probably one of these sort of characters. We see them all around us, they're role models, successful entrepreneurs. Yeah, that's certainly part of the story. But now have another think. This time, think about a time when you've made some kind of a change in your life. You've made a change happen. Maybe you were planning a birthday surprise for somebody. Maybe you were trying to fix that really annoying gadget which didn't quite work in the kitchen, but you found a workaround and now it does work. Or maybe you were trying to do something with your local community, put on a play, or write a musical, or create a poem or something together. It doesn't really matter. They're all typical, everyday examples of innovation. Because that's what innovation is, creating value from our ideas. Now, that value could be commercial value, like the work that Steve Jobs did in building up Apple to be such a large global business. That's one version. But it can also be social value. It can be the kind of value that just solves a problem in our domestic lives, makes a difference. Innovation is creating value from ideas. And we can all do it. In fact, it's fitted as standard equipment. Thankfully, because quite simply, as a species, we wouldn't be around if it wasn't for our ability to innovate. We're not big, we're not strong, we're not fast. In a hostile world, like the kind our ancestors lived in, we wouldn't have survived for long unless we could create new solutions, unless we could innovate. So this gift of innovation is one that we all have. We're all capable of it, which makes us all entrepreneurs. It's a bit of a strange word. It comes from the French. It means somebody who undertakes something. And basically, we can think about entrepreneurs perhaps best in terms of what they do. The famous management writer Peter Drucker said it very simply. Innovation is what entrepreneurs do. But we need to remember they do it in many different contexts. Of course, there's the startup world. We're quite familiar with that these days. People with a great idea, a piece of software, an app, or perhaps a gadget, and they think they're going to make millions or possibly change the world in terms of social innovation through their idea. So, being a startup entrepreneur, it's a role model we can recognize. But it's not the only place where innovation happens, and not the only place where being an entrepreneur is going to matter. Think about inside an established organization, making change happen, introducing a new product or service, changing the processes, the way the organization works. Or think about the public sector. Think about a hospital, for example, improving patient care or patient safety. That's a pretty big area for innovation. It's going to need entrepreneurs. Or think about humanitarian innovation. The kind of situation where after a natural, or sadly very often these days a man-made disaster, we have to pick up the pieces. Vulnerable people who need all sorts of problems solved and fast. It's a matter of life and death. Food, clean water, sanitation, shelter, these are basic human needs, and meeting them requires often a highly innovative response. It's another space where we need entrepreneurs. So the reality is, we're all capable of being entrepreneurs. We all have the basic equipment, and there are many different places where we can deploy those skills. And this idea of entrepreneurial skills is becoming more and more part of the conversation. Places like the European Union are now in their policies thinking about developing entrepreneurial skills, problem solving, coming up with creative ideas, working in teams, making change happen. These skills are beginning to be seen as life skills, the kind of thing we should and are be teaching in schools, never mind in universities and business places. So, entrepreneurship, really important, and a basic set of skills, the good news around which is we understand. We know basically what's involved, and whilst practice makes perfect, we know the core set of skills and they can be learned. So what are these skills that entrepreneurs need? Well, it depends who you ask. You can get lists as short as 3 key skills, 5, 7, 10, 12, 15. There's a fairly long list, but most of them distill down to a few key points. Entrepreneurs need to be risk takers. They don't want to be too timid, they want to try stuff out, and coming with that, they've got to be able to tolerate failure. Not get set back and knocked over, but be able to pick themselves up and keep going. They have to be resilient. What helps a lot is a tolerance for ambiguity. It might be like this, but maybe we've got to change to look at it this way. Particularly in the early stages of developing an idea, that kind of tolerance for ambiguity is important. They need to be creative, able to put different perspectives together. They need to be able to engage other people. The idea of a solo entrepreneur who does it all by themselves, that's a very rare animal. Most entrepreneurial behavior is about team working. It may have leadership attached to it, but it's also about being able to identify and work with a team. And it's about communication, being able to communicate your ideas, infuse them, tell the story to others in such a way that they'll buy into it. Now, there are many other skills, but essentially having this set plus an overall approach, which is we can make a difference. It's sometimes called the growth mindset. It's not a case of accepting the world as it is, it's trying to make an impact on it in some way. But beyond these characteristics, which can to some extent also be trained and developed, but beyond these we can also look for some particular capabilities which can be trained. The entrepreneurial journey, as we're going to find out shortly, isn't a simple idea and then action. There's a journey involved with a number of different stages, and understanding what's involved in those stages and deploying key behaviors, using tools to help develop those behaviors and tools that can help us negotiate the journey is a key part of the story. But perhaps the most important message to take from this is that we are all potentially entrepreneurs. What we need to think about is developing and honing the skills to be effective entrepreneurs.